It was late in the night, around 10 p.m., when David was asleep on his bed and was suddenly awoken by the cries of his pregnant wife, Amaka. She wouldn't stop passing him, desperately trying to arouse him from his sleep for 8 long years. Amaka had endured being labeled as a barren woman, enduring the harsh words and mockery of her mother-in-law and those of her neighbors who doubted her. But now, her news of pregnancy had silenced the gossipers once and for all. However, Amaka appeared to be in labor, and David confused and unsure of what to do. Sati by her side as she signaled for him, to which he did. "The child is coming, take me to the hospital," Amaka managed to say. "I miss the pain," without hesitation. David helped her up, grabbed the key to his taxi, and guided her outside quickly. He opened the taxi door and carefully assisted Amaka inside before taking the driver's seat and settling off in search for the nearest hospital. Having driven around the city, searching for any open hospital that night, David couldn't find any. He was completely tired. Maybe I should drive her home, knock at the door of any woman in the compound to help me deliver her, David concluded. But just as he was about heading home, he spotted a hospital still open at such a late hour. Thanks goodness. Finally, I've seen one. But this hospital is quite luxurious. Can I afford the fee? David thought to himself, contemplating whether to drive inside or go home. But Amaka's scream this time made him honk at the hospital gate. As the gate was open for him, he drove in, leading Amaka inside. "Hello, mister," a voice called out from behind. See, David to turn around. He was met with the sight of a female doctor, Dr. Linda, and a nurse standing there with a stretcher. "Is she in labor?" Dr. Linda asked, to which David simply nodded in response. They then carefully placed Amaka onto the stretcher with Dr. Linda and the nurse, quickly wheeling her inside the labor room. "I'm sorry, David, but you can't accompany her inside. You'll be informed when your wife delivers," Dr. Linda instructed as she closed the door to the hospital. David could only watch helplessly as they disappeared from view. A few minutes later, the female nurse who had entered the room with Dr. Linda came out, and David, who had been anxiously pacing the hospital horse, hurried to meet her. "Please, nurse, how is my wife and baby?" David inquired, his concern. "Evidence. I'm sorry, Mr. David, but your wife has not given birth yet. Dr. Linda advised you to go home and gather some clothes for her and the baby, instead of waiting here." The nurse informed him, despite his worries at leaving his wife alone in the hospital. David knew he had to follow the doctor's instructions. He quickly made his way to his taxi and headed back home to collect the necessary items. Dr. Linda left the hospital word and inquired if David had left, receiving a nod from the nurse. "It's time to act. Come with me. Let's go inside and deliver her," Dr. Linda said, as she then entered the world shortly after Amaka gave birth to a healthy baby boy. And upon hearing his cries, she fainted from tiredness. "We have been waiting for these days, with most deliveries being girls. This complete our order. Do you know what needs to be done now?" Dr. Linda asked the nurse. They understood perfectly as she fated the lifeless baby boy and placed him beside the sleeping Amaka. Then they both left the world with the newborn baby, as Amaka woke up feeling a bit tired, yet filled with joy, as she held her newborn baby in her arms. "Come here, my precious child," Amaka whispered, lifting the baby up only to realize he wasn't moving. "But I heard his cry before I fell unconscious. What happened all of a sudden? This can't be true. Why is my situation different after 8 years of childlessness, enduring insult, tears, staining my pillow every night? And this why did I receive only to give birth to a lifeless baby?" Amaka lamented, tears streaming down her face, frantically looking around the room for David. Amaka left the hospital ward, with tears filled her eyes, going through the hospital in search of her husband. "I have to go soon when that man arrives. Please let him know that he has lost his child." Mr. Andrew mentioned he needed 15 boys, and now this newborn baby. The order is complete. I must leave tonight to deliver the baby. I have already informed him, and he will be expecting me at our usual meeting place," Dr. Linda said to the nurse, but as she turned to put the baby in a travel bag, she was startled to see Amaka standing at the window of her office. It was obvious that she had overheard their conversation. Amaka was shocked by what she heard and quickly rushed into Dr. Linda's office, snatching her child from her arms. "Is this what goes on here, selling innocent babies? I will ensure that everyone knows about the atrocities happening in this so-called hospital," Amaka exclaimed, glaring at Dr. Linda before storming out of the office. Dr. Linda was gripped with fear at the thought of being exposed. She knew she had to act quickly or risk her hardened reputation being destroyed in a panic. She signaled to the nurse to pass her a syringe, which the nurse did promptly as Dr. Linda rushed after Amaka, pretending to plead for forgiveness. "It's the devil's work, I swear, please forgive me. Please don't tell anyone about this," Dr. Linda begged, trying to catch up with Amaka. Amaka, exhausted from her recent delivery, couldn't run as fast, allowing Dr. Linda to catch up with her. "Get out of my way, or you will regret it," Amaka Dr. Linda, who obeyed her, but headed towards the door and shutting it from behind. "I don't think you understand who you are dealing with. Amaka, I'm not someone to be played with. You can try to expose me all you want, but only if you manage to leave this place alive," Dr. Linda said, holding the syringe tightly and advancing towards Amaka. Amaka considered fleeing through another door in the hospital, but the nurse had already blocked that path. Feeling helpless and unsure of what to do next, Amaka dropped to her knees between Dr. Linda and the nurse, pleading for them to spare her and her child. "Please, I beg you, please don't hurt me. I have waited so long for this child. Please," Amaka begged, tears streaming down her face. David was rushing to get to the hospital when he realized that his car had run out of fuel. Knowing that there were no gas station open at that late hour, he gathered up all the things he had packed, clothes, tea, and milk, and decided to continue on foot. Leaving his car behind, he tracked to the hospital. Eager to reach his destination, the nurse moved him closely, attempting to snatch the baby from Amaka's hand, but she adamantly held on, clutching her child tightly. A tense struggle ensued as they both dragged the baby, until suddenly Dr. Linda intervened. Dr. Linda forcefully injected his syringe into Amaka's neck multiple times, causing her to fall and close her eyes for the last time. "Take the baby and put him in that travel bag. I will move her to the hospital to avoid suspicion," Dr. Linda instructed, dragging Amaka's dead body onto the hospital bed. If only he hadn't been so stubborn, none of this would have come to pass. "Unfortunately, your son will soon follow you," Dr. Linda said, before quickly exiting the hospital. Dr. Linda entered her office, bringing out up to 10 travel bags, as she carefully placed them in the boot of her car. Just as she was about to close the boot, David hurried into the hospital. "Doctor, how is my wife? Has she given birth?" Yet David asked anxiously. However, instead of answering, Dr. Linda embraced him, offering a comforting hand on the back, before delivering the heartbreaking news of his wife and child's passing. "Please try to stay strong. Unfortunately, both your wife and the baby did not make it. She passed away shortly after giving birth to a stillborn baby," Dr. Linda gently informed David as he rushed back into the hospital. "I have to leave here quickly," Dr. Linda stated, before driving away from the hospital. Inside of the hospital ward, David lay beside Amaka, screaming onto her. "Amaka, this was never the plan. Why did you have to leave so suddenly? Where do I even begin without you by my side? My life feels empty and meaningless without you here. Please, Amaka, please wake up. I need you more than ever." David's voice cracked with emotion as tears flowed down his cheeks. Dr. Linda was on her way to meet Andrew, when she noticed police officers standing by the road. "Oh goodness, why are they still here?" she muttered as she drove closely. As she approached the officers, they signaled her to stop. "Hey lady, what are you doing here at this late hour?" One of the officers questioned Dr. Linda, who knew she had to max her fear so they wouldn't suspect anything. "There was an emergency at the hospital. I had to be there to help save a life," Dr. Linda explained, handing some cash to the officers who praised her and allowed her to pass with a smile. Dr. Linda was relieved that there wouldn't be a further obstacle in her mission to deliver to Andrew. Stopping next to a bush, Dr. Linda came down from her car and went to the boots, opening it. She took down the travel bags and packed up 2 of them. As she was about to turn, she was startled to see Amaka standing in front of her, sending a shiver down her spine. "Give me my child. Give me my child to me. I need my child." Amaka's voice screamed at Dr. Linda, who trembled in fear upon seeing Amaka's ghost in the late hour alone beside the bush. "Please, don't hurt me. I will give you your child," Dr. Linda said, searching the travel bags, desperately trying to locate where she had placed Amaka's newborn baby, just as she was about to open the travel bags containing the baby. Andrew came out from the bush, standing quiet behind Amaka's ghost with the walking stick Andrew was holding. He used it and touched Amaka's ghost, which made it disappear. Dr. Linda was shocked seeing this and was relieved that this angry ghost didn't manage to cause hurt to her. Andrew was a well-known politician in the state and was Dr. Linda's regular customer. They had been in this business for over 5 years now, Dr. Linda making newborn babies available anytime Andrew needed them. These children were used for 2 purposes, either used by Andrew for money ritual, which always helped in his campaign, or sacrificed to the great oracle of Aja, the god, with 7 eyes. This ensured that Andrew wins any election he contest for that particular spot, was their meeting place anytime Dr. Linda brought the order, and Andrew would carry them inside the bush. Though Dr. Linda didn't know where he was skiing them, when I saw her standing there with no shadow, I knew she wasn't human. "Who is she?" Andrew asked Dr. Linda, who narrated all that had happened to him, knowing that the backs were too many, and Amaka's ghost might come back again to carry them. Andrew instructed Dr. Linda to get into the car as he drove deep inside the bush. "Where are we going?" Dr. Linda asked. Andrew gave a mischievous smile. "A person who knows no road should stay calm while being led to the road. When we get there, you will know." Andrew replied as he increasing the speed of the car as they reached a small hole in the bush. Andrew asked Dr. Linda to step down from the car, which she did, carry the bags inside the hole. Andre added as Dr. Linda obeyed without uttering any word as she stepped inside the hole. An old man's voice screamed at her who there entered Alipa shrine. With foot, "Please forgive her, Alipa. She came with me, and she doesn't know the rules yet. Please be merciful." Andrew pleaded on her behalf as a native doctor instructed both of them to come inside. "The babies are ready for the sacrifice, Alipa, but we have a major issue," Andrew informed the native doctor. "By the time you arrived, the gods had already revealed to me what he had transpired. There's an angry mother's ghost following this woman sitting here," pointing at the surprised Dr. Linda, who was shocked at how he knew the last child you used to complete this order was a mother long-awaited blessing from her God. This woman's only wish was to experience motherhood. She wanted to show the word that she was not cause or barren, but you shatter that dream when you took her life. She will not rest on. She has her child back, and now that this child has entered this great altar, there's no going back. While Andrew may have temporarily driven her away with a powerful staff, she will return soon. This sacrifice will not take place tonight or ever unless that woman is laid to rest. You must ensure she is buried within the next 7 days, and the sand from her grave is brought here to bind her spirit forever. Once this is done, you will no longer have to face her ghost. The native doctor explained. But how can we do that when her ghost is following me? Dr. Linda asked, fear gripping into her voice. The native doctor handed her a staff to hold, which she could use to cast away Amaka's ghost whenever it appeared. Andrew and Dr. Linda then left the hole, getting into the car to drive back to her hospital, hoping to see David Amaka's husband upon arriving at the hospital. Dr. Linda quickly exited the car and hurried inside. "Where is Mr. David?" Dr. Linda inquired of the nurse, who informed her that he had left with his wife Cops and the dead baby a while ago. "Why are you asking, doctor? Is everything all right?" The nurse asked Dr. Linda. "No, everything is fine. Please bring me his medical files." Dr. Linda instructed as the nurse retrieved the files. Dr. Linda searched through them and found his home address. She then went outside to meet Andrew, and they both agreed to visit Mr. David the following day. In David's home, he is surrounded by people offering their condolences for his recent loss. "Be strong, David. Things will get better," one neighbor reassured him, giving him a forting part on the back. Suddenly, a car pulled up with Dr. Linda and Andrew stepping out, catching everyone's attention due to the luxurious car. "Good morning," Mr. David greeted Dr. Linda, whom David recalled as the doctor from the previous night. "We would like to speak with you privately," she added, prompting David to join them in the car. "This one, a luxurious car, is visiting me. Are you sure that this David hasn't done anything fishy?" Teresa, one of David's neighbors, said, with the rest of his neighbors gossiping and going back to their different rooms inside the car. "Dr. Linda is like a sister to me. She told me about your loss, and I want to help. I will cover the funeral expenses and provide financial assistance to you." Andrew offered to David, who was grateful for the support. "When do you plan to bury her?" Dr. Linda inquired. "In a month's time," David replied. But Andre and Dr. Linda knew that wasn't ideal given the problem. She needs to rest peacefully as soon as possible. We will take care of everything. In 7 days, she will be late to rest." Andrew decided, with David agreeing, as he couldn't afford the barrier on his own, having gotten David's consent. Dr. Linda and Andre left excited about the outcome as David wearily made his way to his room, seeking rest after a night filled with tears and grief. He suddenly felt a gentle touch on his shoulder. Startled, he turned around to see who it was that had touched him. "Who touched me?" David questioned, his eyes dating around the room, but no one was there. "It's me, Amaka, your wife." "Your love," Amaka repeated, her voice aloud, but David seemed unaware of her presence. She approached him, trying to touch him again. "I felt like someone was touching me, or maybe it's just my mind playing tricks on me." David pondered as he retreated to his bed, seeking comfort. Amaka continued to call out to him, but he didn't respond. It was clear David wasn't able to see her frustrated and worried. She eventually vanished. It was early the next morning when Dr. Linda was roused from her sleep by a knock on her door. She got up and made her way to the door, wondering who could be visiting her so early. Opening it, she was surprised to see Andrew standing there, and she welcomed him without hesitation. "You've never come visiting me at my house before. How did you even find out where I live?" Dr. Linda questioned Andrew, who just smiled in response. "I asked your nurse. I came to the hospital to deliver a message to you, but she said you weren't there." Andrew explained, "Well, why couldn't we discuss this over the phone, instead of you coming all the way here? What will the neighbors think?" Dr. Linda added, "Sorry about that. Let me just pass on what the native doctor had said. He suggested that we should go ahead with the barrier in 7 days. As there's another option," Andrew said, leaving Dr. Linda shocked. "Another option?" she inquired, intrigued by the revelation. The native doctor believes that we should take the child to another powerful native doctor, as Amaka's ghost may be trying to reclaim her child by any means necessary. Andrew explained urgently, prompting Dr. Linda to get ready. I'm prepared, let's go. Dr. Linda declared as they both headed out. Where did you pack your car? Dr. Linda inquired. We should take yours. I didn't want to bring mine to avoid rising suspicion, Andrew replied. Dr. Linda couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about Andrew, but she couldn't quite pinpoint what it was. She fetched her car from the car park, and Andrew climbed in as they drove off as Dr. Linda packed her car in front of the native doctor's. Hurt Andrew instructed her to go inside and retrieve the baby from one of the travel bags. Are you not coming with me? Dr. Linda inquired. No, I'll be waiting for you here. Be quick, as the journey to the other native doctor won't be easy, Andrew replied. As Dr. Linda stepped out of the car that very morning, it was Aja routine to enter his chamber at the back of his heart, to offer prayers to the ghost with 7 eyes and seek guidance upon entering. Dr. Linda didn't see Aja, but found the babies lying on top of each travel bags, as if being prepared for something. Andrew was right. Someone could have easily walked in and took this baby, Dr. Linda said, as she approached the back where Amaka's baby was lying on. Gently she picked him up and headed out of the hurt. Aja came out of his chamber and headed towards his hurt, where he was surprised to see Dr. Linda carrying a baby in her arms. What have you come here to do? Woman AJ asked Dr. Linda, who trembled in fear. You asked that we should take the baby away from here. Dr. Linda stammered as she answered, This is the work of the ghost again. I didn't say. Such Aja responded as she ordered Dr. Linda to take the baby back, which she did. Aja sprinkled some water from the calabash he was holding around the baby and also on Dr. Linda, asking her to leave. A desperate mother can do all it takes to save her child. From now on, you have to be careful, as she will use different ways to try and trick you into returning the child to her. She knows that she can't enter this shrine and wants to trick you into getting that child out of the shrine so she can take him away from you. Be watchful as you go, the native doctor said to Dr. Linda as Dr. Linda got into her car. She couldn't see Andrew anymore. It was then she realized that he wasn't Andre, but Amaka's ghost. She quickly drove up, shaken by the encounter. 2 days to the barrier. Dr. Linda was in her office, and a patient came in. Sit down, she offered, as the lady sat down. How may I help you? Dr. Linda asked, but the lady gave out a smile. You already know what my problem is, doctor, the lady said to Dr. Linda, who was confused at such response. I am not sure we have met before, madam. If you are not ready to speak, you can leave my office, the angry Dr. Linda said, pointing at the door. I need my child, the lady responded. Which child? The shocked Dr. Linda asked, walking close to Dr. Linda. The lady transformed into Amaka's ghost. Dr. Linda was afraid, as the working staff was in her car, and Amaka's ghost might decide to harm her. Dr. Linda tried to leave her seat, but she couldn't, as if held by glue. She began to sweat previously, seeing Amaka stretching her hands, and was about grabbing her by the neck when the knock came through the door. Dr. Linda, are you there, please? Open up, we have an emergency, the nurse said from outside. But there was no response from Dr. Linda. After waiting for a while, the nurse took matters into her hand and opened the door. Seeing Dr. Lizzie injured and unconscious in her office. What happened, doctor? The nurse said, calling out for help with the help of few people. Dr. to one of the hospital room where she was treated. Amaka's ghost was really frustrating her, but the only way to get rid of this torment was to ensure that Amaka was buried as soon as possible. Bringing out her phone, she called David. Prepare, we are going to the mortuary where you kept your wife corpse, so we can instruct the mortuary attendant to get her ready for the burial. Dr. Linda said to David before ending the call. David, please don't allow them to bury me. I won't rest without getting justice, Amaka said to David, who was fetching water from a well. Bury you? How can you say such? You are still here with me. Or are you planning to leave me? David said. But Amaka turned back, walking out on him. Amaka, stop. Stop, Amaka. What do you mean? David screamed, running after Amaka as he woke up, realizing it was a dream. What could this mean? David asked himself, totally confused. He needed someone to explain the dream to him, and the only person that came to his mind was his mother. He phoned his mother, narrating his dream to her. I told you that lady was a witch, but you didn't listen to me. She wasn't able to give you a child when she was alive, and now wants to block your financial help. You couldn't get once she's buried. Don't worry, my son. I'll be coming to your house today. Let me see how she would even try to appear to your dreams again. David's mom said, but Mama, it seems something had happened, that she is seeking justice. Amaka is trying to tell me something that I don't know about. David said to his mother, nothing happened to her except that her witch people decided to take her and the so-called child that she has in her womb during labor, once her barrier is complete. I will get a good woman from the village for you, David's mom said as David angrily ended the call, pacing around the room. I can't believe my own mother would think like this, David said to himself, feeling conflicted. He couldn't shake up the feeling that there was more to Amaka's words than just a mere dream. Shortly after, Andrew and Dr. Linda pulled up at David's house, and they all headed to the mortuary together. Teresa, David's neighbor, watched from her window as they departed. I wonder if David used amaka for some kind of ritual. Teresa muted, shaking her head in disbelief as they arrived at the mortuary. The attendant was instructed to prepare Amaka's body for retrieval the next day, however. Upon going to the place where her body was kept, the attendant was shocked to find that Amaka was no longer there. I can't find her, the mortuary attendant reported, causing Andre and Dr. Linda to exchange worried glances. What do you mean you can't find my wife's body? I personally brought her here that night, and now you are saying she's gone. Go back in there and search thoroughly, David exclaimed angrily. Despite multiple searches, the mortuary attendant could not locate Amaka's body. Andrew suspected that Amaka was playing a trick to avoid being buried the next day. We'll return and ensured you find her. David, let's go. He may have just forgotten where he placed her. Andre suggested, leading David away. As they departed after dropping David off at his home, Andre and Dr. Linda continued on the native doctor's shrine to seek a solution to this unexpected problem. Mama Amaka's corpse is missing, David said to his mother, who is found already seated in his house. I will take you to a powerful native doctor who might know what happened to our cops. I told you that the evil amaka doesn't want your success, David's mother said. But how did you get inside, Mama? It was only Amaka who had the other key to this house. David asked his mother. That shouldn't bother you. Now, follow me, David's mother said as they left to meet with the native doctor. Mama, where are you heading to exactly? David questioned his mother as they went deeper into the scary bush. Just enter the mod house on your left. I will meet you there, his mother quietly instructed. Leaving David confused and unsure of the unfolding situation. You brought me here only to leave me behind again, Mama. I'm lost and confused. David expressed his frustration, but his mother remained silent and walked away, following the path to his left. David came across a mud house, adored with mysterious charms and ancient items, with 4 snakes hanging at the entrance, representing the 4 market days. The sight filled him with fear. How does my mother knows of this place? It's dangerous, and as the head of the community's Catholic women's organization, she would never come here. I don't understand what's happening. David pondered out, utterly confused, as he contemplated leaving a man's voice, called him back. "Don't go, son. The answer you seek are inside." The man went, revealing himself dressed in red wrapper and his left eyes painted with white chalk. "Who are you, sir?" David asked, fear gripping into his voice. "I am here to help you. My son, come inside, and I will reveal some secrets to you." The man been not just about the snakes hanging at the door. David was afraid to go inside the house, with a scary man standing in front of him. "I will wait for my mother to return before entering." David stated it, prompting the man to laugh at his ignorance. "Your mother?" the man questioned, as David nodded in response. "That is not your mother, my son. It's your late wife, in disguise of your mother." The man disclosed, shocking David to the core, seeking answers and eager to find out the mystery behind the dream he had. The other day, David made a choice to follow the man inside the mob house. As Andrea and Dr. Linda arrived at Aja Shrine, they took off their shoes before entering. They sat on the left side of a chair that was dressed in red wrapper. "Aja, we are in trouble. The night is about descending in broad daylight. Amaka's corpse is missing." Andrea gently voiced his worries to Aja, who nodded in understanding. "I know, my child, but the solution you seek lies within abode of David, the widow of the woman whose life was tragically cut short," Aja shared, leaving Andrew and Dr. Linda confused as they looked at each other. "What do you mean, Aja? You are speaking in parables?" Dr. Linda inquired. "This is all I can say. This is what the God with 7 eyes has shown me. Go to David's house, and there you will find the answers you seek." Aja explained once more before Dr. Linda and Andrew expressed their gratitude, departing for David's house. "Your wife has been trying to tell you about what happened to her on that fateful night, but all her attempt had failed. Restless and unable to find peace, her spirit finally led her to me. My son, the woman who brought you here is Amaka. Your late wife, Amaka, was a wonderful person, in every way blessed by her God. She had a loving husband like you, a family of her own, but the one thing she longed for was a child to call her own, that faithful night while she was in labor. You rushed her to the hospital open at late." "You are right, yes," Sir David answered. "That's correct, but how do you know all of this?" David asked, shocked as the man continued to speak. "I am no ordinary person that night. The nurse sent you back home to get something, and that was the beginning of your tragedy. Your wife's life was taken by someone who should have saved her. The hospital you took her to is a dangerous place where unspeakable things happen. Your wife discovered that the doctor intended to sell her child, and when she threatened to expose her, she silenced her forever by taking her life." The man revealed, narrating the horrific event to David, who stood there filled with anger. "So she was murdered by the doctor, and they are pretending to help me. Where is my wife's body? She's missing." David demanded, "Her body is in your bedroom. She took it there. It is up to you to hide her cups, so she won't be buried tomorrow. Once that is done, your child will be safe from their clutches, and Amaka will find peace once the child is with you. Go now, and give your wife the justice she deserves," the man instructed. David, who left with tears in his eyes, regretting ever taking Amaka to that evil hospital. "I will do everything in my power to expose that evil," declared, stepping into his taxi and heading back home, determined to bring justice to his late wife and protect their child at David's house. Teresa had gone to retrieve her dried clothes from the backyard when she noticed that David's bedroom window was wide open. Curiosity got the better of her as she couldn't resist taking a closer look. "His behavior has been suspicious lately. Let me see if he's hiding something in there," the Teresa muttered as she peeped through the window. What she saw left her utterly shocked, and Amaka's lifeless body lay on the bed. Does this mean he never took her to the hospital? Did he kill his wife right here? I knew it ever since he started mingling with those wealthy people who visited him. Why are you causing a commotion in this neighborhood? One of the neighbors asked. As Teresa narrated what she had seen as they all looked through the window, Amaka's dead body lay there, and some shook their heads in sorrow. This man's greed has driven him to kill his wife. Let's call the police immediately and inform them of what's happening. Teresa suggested leading elders to accompany her to the nearest station to report the matter. Meanwhile, Andrew and Dr. Linda arrived at the scene in their car and were met with a crowd. Sensing something had occurred, they approached the lady to inquire about the commotion. What is happening here? Dear Dr. Linda asked. The lady, his wife's dead body was found in his bedroom this afternoon. Some neighbors have gone to call the police to remove the body and arrest David. The woman informed Andrew and Dr. Linda. It was at that moment that Andrew and Dr. Linda understood the meaning of Aja's words. We need to find a way to get her body from there, Andre stated, glancing at Dr. Linda as David returned from the shrine. He was confused seeing the large crowd gathered in front of his house. What's going on? Why are so many people here? He asked as he drove further. There was no space for him to pack, so he got out of his taxi and asked the crowd to move so he could drive him. Instead of stepping aside, they closed in on him, attacking him with his words and blows. How dare you show your face here after what you did to your wife? One person accused. David was shocked at the false accusations. He tried to defend himself, but no one listened. Stop! That a voice called out from behind the crowd, parted as the police officer arrived and pulled David away. Let the law handle this. Don't take matters into your own hands and show us the supposed body you claim to have seen, one of the officers ordered as they entered David's compound. The crowd following behind. I can't see Amaka's dead body. Here, Andrew told the Dr. Linda as he peeped through the window. We need to figure out a way to break into the house. Maybe she is in there somewhere. Dr. Linda suggested to Andrew. They noticed David with the police officers nearby and decided to quietly leave from the backyard of the compound. We have to lay low for a bit. Once things settles down, we can sneak into his house in search, Andrew advised. But what if the officers find the body? Dr. Linda asked, worried. Andrew responded with a confident smile. It seems you have forgotten who I am. I wouldn't mind if they do find her. I can easily retrieve her body by offering some cash to the officers, Andrew assured Dr. Linda as he sat in his car waiting behind. Let's find out what happened next. Please support me by subscribe to my YouTube channel.